Here are 3 go-to vegan Instant Pot recipes. Now, a lot of people feel overwhelmed when trying to cook more plant-based. What do I cook? How do I do it? Well, honestly, it's just as simple as switching out your chicken broth for veggie broth and your chicken for white beans. You can use the same recipe and just make these 2 swaps, and then bing, bada boom, you have a vegan meal. First, we'll start cooking my go-to beans and rice recipe. I make this all the time.
Now, the problem is I'm not much of a person that plans in advance, and so I usually don't actually soak my dry beans overnight. And in the past, when I would put them directly into the Instant Pot and cook them with the water and make the seasonings in the water, we would all get a little bit gassy. So here is what I do in order to reduce the gas, even if I did not soak my beans overnight. I will be cooking my beans in a bunch of water. I don't measure it. It's usually about 3 times the amount of water as the beans. Then I add the beans and 1 tablespoon of salt. Yes, a tablespoon of salt, but don't worry, we are gonna be rinsing most of this out. Put on the lid and cook on high for 30 minutes. Now, because that's going to take about a half an hour, I'm going to also put some rice in my rice cooker so that that will be done too.
The beans are done, and this is where my secret sauce comes in. You will drain all of the water out of the beans. This is key, all of it. Yes, all of it. I know it tastes better with the water it's cooked in, I get that, but if we did not soak the beans overnight, you don't want to be gassy, and this will help reduce the gas. Then you rinse the beans. You can taste them, make sure they're cooked the way you like, rinse out the pan and put them back in. It's time to add some flavor back in, about 2 cups of water, 2 tablespoons of veggie broth paste. Now, of course, you can just do 2 cups of veggie broth instead. Then we will add 1 tablespoon of oregano, 1 tablespoon of cumin. We'll finish this off with the juice of 1 lime. Now I push saute for just about 5 minutes to let the flavors marinate together. This is seriously one of our go-to dinners that I'm constantly making at least once a week in my Instant Pot. Let's make Madras lentils in the Instant Pot. My kids absolutely love those bags from Costco of Madras lentils. Their favorite snack is to come home from school, grab some rice with those Madras lentils, and sometimes they'll even just eat them by themselves. But they're not cheap, and so I'm excited to make a big batch. Everyone loves this meal, and it's super easy to make beforehand, so I can go off, go to sports, go to soccer, go to dance, and dinner's already done. We'll begin by chopping up an onion and a bell pepper. We'll turn on the saute function for about 5 minutes. Then I will add my pepper and onion with a little bit of water. Here's the water instead of oil, just a little bit. Then we'll add 4 cloves minced garlic. One time I had a teenager help me make a meal when she was babysitting when my kids were young, and she added the cloves of garlic whole, completely whole, to the meal in the Instant Pot. So definitely mince it. And you'll add about 2 tablespoons of grated ginger, fresh ginger. If you only have dried ginger, that's just fine too. Just tastes a little better when it is fresh. You'll add 1 teaspoon smoked paprika, 1 teaspoon cumin, 1 teaspoon salt, and 1 teaspoon of garam masala. Now, I bought this off of Amazon a long time ago, and I've used it probably for about 2 years now. This smells amazing. It smells so good. You can see the water has mostly evaporated. You'll add a 14-ounce can of tomato sauce. This can is only 8 ounces, so I have to add a little bit more. Now this is Madras lentils, so we'll need to add 1 cup of lentils. Here's 1 cup of lentils. I'm also going to turn off the saute function. Then add a can of rinsed small red beans. Now this recipe does call for chili powder, actually 2 teaspoons. I am leaving it out just because I'm afraid my kids won't eat it if it's too spicy. The last thing to add is 2 cups of veggie broth. I just use water and 2 teaspoons of the Better Than Bouillon veggie paste, but any type of veggie broth works. I will close the lid, cook on high for 23 minutes. That's because I have green lentils. If it was red lentils, it would just be 18 minutes. Now, while that's cooking, I'm going to make up a bunch of rice in my rice cooker. All right, it is done. This recipe does not call for coconut milk, but if you wanted to, if you really like the flavor and the taste, you could add a little bit of coconut to it after it's cooked. Is it hot? It's good? What would you rate it?
8 out of 10.
An 8 out of 10.
I'm taking this. Goodbye.
Now, soups are my true go-to when it comes to Instant Pot recipes. I love how I can just throw in a bunch of stuff, take my kids to all the places, come back home, and dinner is already done. I love soups for that reason. In fact, my go-to soup is the lasagna soup recipe, but I've already shared that with you. So instead, I want to show you my tortilla soup, and it is delicious and so easy. Let's make it. We'll start by turning on the saute function on the Instant Pot, and then we'll saute 1 red onion. You'll let that saute for a minute or 2, and then you will add 1 jar of salsa verde. Now, this is the roasted version, and I noticed the heat, right? This is medium heat. This recipe also calls for jalapenos, but I'm not adding them because I'll get enough heat from just the salsa verde. You can also use tomatillo salsa if you don't have salsa verde. We'll add 1 teaspoon of cumin. Then you'll add 2 cans of white beans. Usually you'll want to use cannellini beans, but I only have 1, so I'm gonna use pinto beans as well. The 2 together will work great. Make sure the beans are rinsed and drained. Now the recipe calls for 2 cups cooked rice. Instead, I'm going to add 3/4 cup uncooked rice and add an extra cup of veggie broth. I always like to rinse out my rice before I put it in a soup, and so that already has a little bit of liquid, so the extra cup will be perfect. We'll add that in there. And then the recipe calls for 4 cups veggie broth. I always use veggie paste with water. And I'm going to add 5 cups because of the uncooked rice. And 5 teaspoons of this broth. That's it. And because the rice is not cooked, we will pressure cook for about 20 minutes, and then it should be good to go. Soup is done. Now we just need to add some fresh lime juice. You can garnish with green onions, cilantro, spinach, tomatoes, add anything else you want to it, and then definitely serve with either some chips or tortillas. If you love these recipes, make sure to check out my lasagna soup and my other soup recipes where I use the Instant Pot, as well as how I cook all my potatoes in the Instant Pot. There's so many different ways to use the Instant Pot for your plant-based needs. I love it, and I hope you love it too.